All right, so welcome to another ABS conversation. Today we're joined with Mark Barron, who is the owner of the Ben Hogan Facebook page. He's also a historian and on the board of directors for the Ben Hogan Museum in Dublin, Texas. Thanks for joining us, Mark. So I've got one very simple question for you today. Is Ben Hogan the greatest golfer of all time?
I believe he is. I'm going to give you a few some reasons. The reasoning why I feel that way, because I think there's more nuances to deciding who the greatest golfer of all time is, than just by simply counting the number of tournaments or the number of majors a person won. Because Ben Hogan simply did not have the opportunity to play in the same amount of majors, and we'll deep dive into that later. But
Yeah,
I'd like to start off with
I've got all
pardon
that stuff from Wikipedia.
me. Oh, good deal. Couple of things I'd like to mention about Ben Hogan. You know that pathway when from the after you hit your tee shot to the fairway, there's a little pathway that you walk through, and that is carved out through the rough. That's thanks to Ben Hogan. The USGA decided that because Ben Hogan was never in the rough and his pant legs were always clean, that they decided to mow a little path for him so the cuffs of his legs wouldn't get wet and he would look presentable. He would look very clean and everything. And so the next time you're walking down that pathway off the first tee, you just give thanks to Ben Hogan for that little convenience. And one other anecdote I'd like to mention is in the USG, this is all the USGA. In 1950, the USGA held the U.S. Open in Marion, and if you all know about Marion, they have a wicker basket for their flagpole. They have, instead of a flag, they have a wicker basket. But at the Ben Hogan Museum, there's a flag from the 1950 U.S. Open at Marion, and Karen Wright, the curator of the Ben Hogan Museum, inquired with Marion as to why didn't I get a wicker basket? And he said because in 1950 the USGA told Marion that you cannot use a wicker basket on the greens. You have to use a flag because they said they'd be darned if they were going to be the tournament that would be responsible for Ben Hogan hitting a wicker basket on a fly with one of his shots and bouncing off the green and losing the tournament. They said they don't want that to happen. So the one time that they used a flag, and from then on they always use a wicker basket, but that one time they used a flag, and that flag is on display. One of the flags is on display at the Ben Hogan Museum in Dublin, Texas. So there you go. There are a couple little anecdotes about Ben. It just showed you the power that Ben Hogan had with the USGA, that they would actually mow a pathway for him, and that they would change the flags just for him, because as we know, Ben Hogan dominated the U.S. Open, and during his prime of his career. So I thought I'd just pass those little anecdotes on with you,
I didn't know
just
that.
to
I never knew that. That's true about the strip of fairway off the tee box, is
yeah,
it? That's a true story.
yeah,
I did not
yeah,
know
it's a true
that.
story. USGA, yeah, you can thank Ben Hogan. So yeah, so the reasons why I feel Ben Hogan is the GOAT is uh, like a lot of people during World War II, like Ted Williams and various other people, athletes, they missed 3 years. They shut down the US the professional golfing tour shut down for 2 years, from 1942 August of 42 to August of 44. They didn't play any tournaments at all. And Ben Hogan was serving in the Air Corps, Army Air Corps. It used to be part of the Army, but now it's now known as the Air Force. But it was the Army. It was the Army Air Corps. Um, yeah, so he was serving 3 years. So when the USGA picked up, or when the PGA picked up the tournaments in August of 1944, Ben was still serving his country, and he only played in 5 tournaments in that 3 year period. And he registered as Lieutenant Ben Hogan, and he was only able to play because he was granted a furlough. So from August of 42 to August of 45, he only played 5 tournaments. And so that was the prime of his career. He missed the Masters, he missed the U.S. Open, of course he missed the Open Championship, He missed the PGA. He missed everything. And just all the regular tournaments too. They just didn't. That's what the country called for, and he never complained, or none of the athletes really complained about it because that was their duty. We were in war, and they accepted that fact, and that's just the way it was. So, if you want to go into statistics about that, I dropped my pen.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about the war and the fact that he missed tournaments. I mean, let's imagine that during the Vietnam War, they decided to close down all the golf tournaments, and Jack Nicklaus missed 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
How many majors would he lose from his career? Let's say during the Gulf War in the early 2000s, if they stopped playing golf tournaments and Tiger Woods missed 3 or 4 years of his career, how many majors would Tiger Woods lose? So I mean,
exactly.
When was Ben Hogan the best player in the world? 1940 was it, or 1939? Do you think?
He started in 38. He won the Varden Trophy and the money title in 1938. Again in 1939, he won it. Then in 1940, he was leading, but they stopped it because of the war. So from 1940 to 1946, well, he really wasn't playing that much. When 1942 to 46, he started up again. So yeah, so he was the dominant golfer. Although he didn't win majors, but he was the dominant golfer prior to World War II. And of course, we can talk about the 1942 U.S. Open, the National Open, the Hell America, which he won, but it doesn't count it as a major. But so the fact is that Ben Hogan won in 42, and then he took 3 years off. And when he came back in 1945, he played in 25 consecutive tournaments. And he only finished out of the top 10 one time. He won, he won 7 times. He came in second 3 times. So those coming in first and second is about half of the tournaments that he played in. And I kind of estimated what he would have won if he would have played today and won those 25 played those 25. It would have been $20 million. He would have won. And so, so that's part of that was just the plight of the golfer back then. And so he played in less than half of the tournaments that Jack Nicklaus played. In the 30-year span of a golfer's career, of a golfer that lasts 30 years, usually that's their career, he would have had the opportunity to play 120 majors. Most golfers today have opportunity to play in 120 majors. Ben Hogan played in only 56 majors because of World War II, because of his accident, and because of the travel restraints of the Open Championship. So, but he still ended up winning half of what Nicklaus. He won 9 majors. So if you take his winning percentage and apply it to the tournaments that he missed, and if you count the major tournaments that were held back then, like the North and South and the Western Open, they were considered majors to the golfers back then. If you add up all those with this 20% percentage of winning, it's like 27 majors he would have won. So, because the stuff that he missed, the tournaments he missed, were right in the prime of his career. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously he didn't just miss them because of the war. He obviously missed a year because of his accident, and then beyond his accident, he also didn't play in a full schedule because he couldn't play in the PGA tournament anymore because it was 36 holes. So, yeah. I mean, so what are you estimating it at? 27 if he managed to play in every year?
Yeah, I mean, that's hypothetical. That's the high end. That's the high end.
I did a very similar calculation, and I think I put this on the Ben Hogan Facebook page a couple of years ago, and I came up with a 22 figure. And it doesn't take too much. You don't have to be the cleverest mathematician in the world to sort of do these sort of calculations and to come up with something in the mid-20s. You don't have to be bending the truth very much you don't have to be bending the stats much to come up with these sort of figures. It's there if you go looking for it. Like you say, I mean, Jack, by the time he retired, by the time he won the 1986 Open, so no, okay, forget about the stuff he played after, when he was in his 50s and in his 60s. Jack played in about 96, about 100 majors by the time he retired. Hogan, by the time he'd retired, I've got him down as playing about 39 tournaments. I know you've said he played. How many did you say he played in there?
I thought he played 56.
Yeah, but I'm excluding beyond the time when he actually retired. When he was a
Yeah.
60-year-old playing in the US Open, he wasn't really going to win it.
Yeah.
I know he did sort of compete in 1960, but I'm talking about when he retired in, let's say, 1950. By 1957, he'd only played in 39, whereas Nicholas had played in closer to 100. The stat that jumps out for me. Now, if Hogan had been playing if Hogan had been playing 4 a year for all of those years, it does put you in the mid-20s. I mean, why don't we just focus on his record in the US Open for a bit? I mean, the US Open, that's the major that was designed to identify the best golfer in the world. So why don't we talk about his record in the US Open for a little bit first?
Yeah. Yeah, as you just said, Sandy Tatum, who was the president of the USGA, was talking about the US Open setup, how difficult it is. And one of the reporters says, "What, are you trying to embarrass these golfers?" And Sandy Tatum says, "I'm not trying to embarrass these golfers. I'm not trying to embarrass these best golfers. I'm trying to identify the best golfers." So and the courses that the US Open set up are the hardest of the four majors. They make it the most difficult in relation to par. And Ben Hogan thrived at the US. He's dominated. Let's see here. Where did it go? I had some stats here on the.
Well, I've got some stats here. So, like 1940, he was fifth. 1941, he was third. And then obviously we get to the Hail America Open in 1942. Why don't we talk about that for a little bit? Because I mean, Ben Hogan considered it to be a US Open win. He thinks he won 5. I mean, do you think he won 5, or are you with 4?
No, I believe it was 4 because I mean the USJ does own that tournament, and they're the ones that can declare it as a major or not. They're not going to declare it as a major. So I think though that it could count as a major, not as a U.S. Open, but similar to like they want to do for like the Players Championship or something like that. But they want to do it, but they haven't done it.
So basically, the Hail America was the same week as the U.S. Open. It was more or less the same field. I mean, were there many players missing from that?
Yeah.
Lloyd Mangrum wasn't there. Is that right?
Yeah, it was the same field that was there at the Masters that year and at the PGA that year, and both of those tournaments counted as majors.
Yeah. So the Masters was obviously after Pearl Harbor. The Masters was after Pearl Harbor. That counted as a major. And did Hogan came second in that? Byron Nelson won it.
Yep.
So why did the USGA decide that the Hail America? They called it the Hail America. Why was that not considered a US Open? It does seem a bit unfair on Hogan. You can understand why. I think he considered it as a major, but why did the USGA not consider it a major?
Well, the reason why the story is the U.S. Open was originally scheduled to be played in Interlaken, which is in Minnesota. And after World War II started, that country club decided that they weren't going to host. They just didn't feel right hosting the U.S. Open during wartime. So the USGA, along with the PGA and the Chick Evans Foundation and several other organizations, they combined and decided to have a tournament in Chicago, which was centrally located. It was a wartime substitute it's called the wartime substitute for the USO and it's called the Hail America National Open is the official name. And the Hail came from they wanted this to be like an exercise for people. They wanted people to inspire people to get exercising. So it was the Hail. The Hail part is like for healthiness. And it was just a fundraiser, raise funds for the Red Cross and the other other charity forms and people that were helping the cause for the U.S. for the World War II. So they even declared this, the U.S. Open, USGA said this is not a U.S. Open. They said this is not. This is just a substitute. And Ben Hogan ended up winning it by an amazing score, which the USGA didn't like because it was so far under par. The course wasn't set up to be like US Open conditions. It was set up to be, it was wide open, and Hogan shot course records, and he ended up winning the tournament. And
Yeah, I think he shot like
he
60.
ended up
He shot
getting a medal.
62. He shot 62 in the second round and finished like 17 under par, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, so set a record for if it was the U.S. Open, it would have set the record for the lowest score. And then at the ceremony, he was presented with a medal. It looks exactly like the U.S. Open medals, the other four medals he won. So later in his career, Ben Hogan was saying, yeah, he felt as if it should be considered a U.S. Open because of the qualifying rounds were the same as the U.S. Open, and all the players were there, but the USGA is just not going to allow it. So, but later there's kind of a famous photo of Ben Hogan holding a pillow with five medals, five
Yeah, I've
U.S.
seen that.
Open medals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he started saying that. And of course, we have Dan Jenkins. If we know golf authors, probably one of the greatest, the funniest one. Oh my God, he's hilarious. He was a big advocate for. He was friends with Ben Hogan, and he was a big advocate for the Hail America to be considered as a U.S. Open.
All right, so basically, 1940 comes fifth, 1941 he comes third, 1942 he wins the Hail America, not the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Then the war happens, so he has another 3 years of no tournaments. So after the war, he comes fourth, then he comes sixth, and then 1948 he finally wins one.
Yeah.
And then obviously then there's the accident, so he misses another year. Then miraculously at Merion, he wins in 1950, wins again in 1951, then he comes third in 1952, then he wins it in 1953. So let's go back through that again. From 48, win, 50, win, 51, win, third, then a win. So 1, 2, 3, 4 years out of 5, he wins it.
Yeah. And
I mean,
and then I don't think he finished out of the top 10 for like 2 decades.
Yeah,
I've got that.
I've got that. Don't worry. Yeah, from 1940 all the way through till 1959, 1960. From 1940 to 1960, he was never outside the top 10. I mean, and this is the golf tournament which is designed to find the greatest player in the world, not to embarrass the greatest player in the world. I mean, that is just unbelievable record.
Isn't that unbelievable? Honest, that's just amazing. And he was playing at the end there against Arnold Palmer. He played against a young Jack Nicklaus, who's still an amateur, but there were some great golfers that he was competing against. Gardner Dickinson, and we had Kerry Middlecoff, Julius Boros, all Hall of Famers. Lloyd Mangrum.
1960. Yeah, 19, was he not like, he was right there in contention until the 71st hole. It was already like par 5, and you hear what he described as a really good shot, but it just spun back off the front of the green. So he was right. He was very close in 1960 to winning one until that 71st hole.
Yeah, and he said he never he wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about that shot. He thought about that shot the rest of his life. It upset him. So. And then, of course, in 1955, he almost won the tournament, too. He lost in the playoff to Jack Fleck, which is considered the greatest upset of all time in golf.
Yeah, he was using Hogan clubs at the time, wasn't he? I think Hogan had delivered him a sandwich or something like that, and then he went out and beat him with it. Unbelievable. So,
he was playing Hogan club.
So the US Open, I mean, his record is, I mean, obviously, other people have won it 4 times as well. I mean, Bobby Jones's record is equally impressive. Although I think in Jones's day, it's fair to say that the fields weren't as strong. I mean, Walter Hagen, I don't even think Walter Hagen turned up for the 1930, I think of the Open Championship. Actually, I'm thinking about the Open Championship where Hagan didn't even bother to turn up. So, I mean, obviously Jones has got a tremendous record, but I think
Yes, he does.
the fields in those days, you know, one fact that jumps out at me if you talk about Walter Hagen's records. I remember we've talked about this before, and someone said, "Well, what about Walter Hagen?" Well, Walter Hagen never beat Bobby Jones in any of the major tournaments that Hagen won, which is just an unbelievable
Yeah.
fact. So, I mean, in those days, there were ships in the night.
Yeah.
I mean, were there really majors in those days? I mean, when did the majors start? I mean, one of the things I
Well,
find, so,
they said the Grand Slam started in 1960
yeah, I agree with
when
that.
Arnold
Totally
Palmer
agree with that. Yeah,
went to the
yeah,
Open Championship. That's
yeah,
I think it was Herbert Warren Wynn said that's when the majors started.
yeah.
The
I mean,
four
the fact that
majors,
we're talking
correct?
about Hogan only winning 9, you know, he wasn't trying to win these tournaments. And like you say, he was playing in the Western Open, he was playing in the North South, and in winning those, but they're not counted. But he would have been counting them in those days.
Yeah.
So okay,
Yeah,
well
those
let's talk about the Open Championship. Um, Talk about his record in that. So that was quite impressive.
well, he's got a perfect record.
Yeah. Has anybody else done that?
He played
Has anybody else played one, won one? I don't think there can't be anybody else
no,
done
he's
that.
the only one.
Yeah.
He's the only one with 100% winning percentage.
So he decides.
So the story goes that
So he decides he's going to come and play in the Open. Who was it who pestered him to come and play?
yeah, it was well actually Walter Hagen and Bobby Jones and some other people from the earlier generation said, Ben, your legacy is not going to be cemented unless you win the Open Championship. You're known as a great golfer, but you know, like this is you have to have that on your resume if you want to be a great golfer. So if you want to be considered a great golfer, so he went over to Carnoustie like 2 weeks before the tournament, um, along with Frank Stranahan. They flew over together. His wife was there, and um, they stayed at a beautiful home that was arranged for him, and so he was very comfortable. It didn't start off that way. He came there and he saw the hotel room and he said, I can't stay here because he has to take a bath, and they didn't have a bath, so he was ready to leave. But then they remembered that the cash register company had reserved a house for him, so he went and stayed at this beautiful home. His wife, Valerie Hogan, said it was a beautiful yard with a beautiful house with a beautiful bath. She was quoted as it was such a beautiful place. So he went there 2 weeks ahead of time and was practicing because back then the British ball was a 1.62 diameter and the American golf ball was a 1.68. So the British ball was a little bit smaller and it would settle down into the rough. So he went over there 2 weeks ahead of time to practice hitting that ball, and it goes further too, especially against the wind. So so he was prepared for that tournament like no other. And coincidentally, it was a shame that the PGA held their tournament during the qualifying round. At the Open Championship, you still have to play in qualifying rounds, even if you were the previous winner. Bobby Locke was the winner the previous year, and he still had to qualify to play in the Open Championship in 1953. So Ben was and the PGA was being held at the exact same time that the qualifying rounds were. So would have been impossible for Ben to play on all four majors that year. Not that he would have anyway, but so he qualified, and son of a gun, if he didn't shoot a better score every day in that tournament, and also one of the few people to ever do that, to shoot a lower round in all four scores of 4 rounds, lower score in all 4 rounds. So, and he ended up winning, and it was just an amazing feat. He came back to America, and he had a ticker tape parade for him down in the Wall of Champions on I think it's Broadway in New York. I think it's Broadway. The big ticker tape for the same avenue that Bobby Jones had a ticker tape parade, and Dwight Eisenhower had a ticker. A lot of people, but only Bobby Jones and Ben Hogan were the only two golfers to have a ticker tape parade for them. And then they had a nice dinner for him. He was on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was just getting started off at that time. And it was amazing. So then he comes back to Fort Worth, and he comes back to a big parade in Fort Worth, and they name the day that he arrived back as Ben Hogan's Day, and he got a proclamation, and it was amazing, and just an amazing feat that he would go to. And Carnoustie, they played Carnoustie Golf Course, which was considered the hardest golf course in the world at the time. The hardest golf course in the world, not just in England or Scotland. It was in Scotland. But yeah, it was, so he tamed that court. It was, nobody else shot like him. He was, and the British people, the Scottish people, they absolutely loved him. They just admired, they followed him around everywhere he went. They were very respectful. And Ben Hogan loved the Scottish people. He was known as a very crass and, short tempered, and, he didn't like chit chat or anything like that, but he just loved the Scottish people, and he talked with them. His wife Valerie said, but he's never seen Ben Hogan so happy talking to people before. She knows, and so it was just magic. It was a magical moment, honestly. I wish have some people that were there, and they're saying stuff like they're saying about Tiger Woods. Nobody's ever going to play like this. It's the greatest golfer of all time, and nobody will ever be better than this. And so Ben Hogan had the same crowd reaction as Tiger Woods. He was really considered the greatest golfer of all time. Articles were written about it back then at the time. Yeah, so it was just an amazing thing that he would just go over there one time and win.
Yeah, so 100% record. So the US Open, nobody's got a better record than him. Even Jack Nicklaus, even Tiger Woods, even though they played in way, way more US Opens than Ben Hogan did. Ben Hogan's got a 100% record. Only person to ever do that in the Open Championship, in our Open.
Ben Hogan has a higher winning percentage of majors than Tiger or Jack. He also has a higher winning percentage of winning regular tournaments than Tiger or Jack. So there is a case for you. One of the reasons why I would like to think that Ben Hogan is the greatest golfer of all time. That's one of the reasons.
I think if he'd been playing in 4-year every year all the way throughout his career, I don't think there's any doubt he would have been in the mid-20s in terms of majors. If that had been his focus. Jack was really focused on winning majors. That's what he wanted to do. That's what he planned his life around, and that's what he succeeded at. Tiger came along, and Tiger was determined to beat Jack's record. But, injuries got in the way, and other things got in the way for Tiger. And I think if Tiger hadn't become injured, I genuinely think he would have beat Jack's record, but unfortunately it didn't happen for Tiger. Tiger really dominated. Jack Nicklaus didn't dominate. Jack Nicklaus didn't dominate the majors in the same way that Tiger did or that Hogan did. Hogan's record from 1946 to 1953 was just unbelievable. I think he won 9 out of 16. I've got one of my notes here. I don't think Jack came even close to having any period of domination like that. Tiger's was close. Tiger had a couple of little real spells of domination. But I think if Ben Hogan had a longer career where he was able to play more, he would have had another period of dominance like that. Another thing I think which needs to be taken into consideration when you're talking about Ben Hogan in his career is the fact that he didn't arrive on the scene like the other guys did at 20-year-old as these world-class players, because he didn't really have the opportunity, because he had to overcome such adversity, which the other guys didn't. Bobby Jones had a hugely supportive father who I think used to carry him around on a cushion when he was a baby. He was absolutely adored by his father and given every opportunity to play and to practice. Jack Nicklaus, his dad was hugely supportive. Had a great, he had one of the best golf coaches. Tiger Woods, whatever you want to say about his dad, he really encouraged Tiger. He gave Tiger every opportunity. Ben Hogan didn't get that. So when Ben Hogan was 20 years old, he wasn't ready for him. All the other guys won their first majors 20, 21, 22, that sort of age, I think. Yeah. Hogan was, 36, I think, when he won his first one?
It was, if you count the Hail America in 1942, he was born in 1912, so he was 30 years old at that time when he won the Hail America. So, and then 3 years later, of course, he was 43 when he came out of or 33 when he came out of, but yeah, it's Tiger. I mean, Ben Hogan grew up in the Depression. He was not. That's another thing. I mean, he had a hard life. He he had to scramble. He had to work hard as a kid because his father, as we know, well, I don't know if we know, but his father committed suicide when Ben Hogan was 12 or 9, when he was 9, and he had to help support the family after his father died. His mother was a seamstress, and she made good money, but not enough. So both his brother, his name is Royal, they were selling newspapers and making a little bit of money. And then he heard about this opportunity to be a caddy at Glen Gardens golf course where you could earn 15 cents a day. And so he went there and he didn't know anything about golf. He didn't know anything about caddying or anything. And so of course the kids teased him and they beat him up and they rolled him down a hill in a barrel and things like that. But he fought back. A couple of times those guys hit him and he hit him right back, knocked him down on the ground. He was a strappy, strong little kid. He was a short kid, so they picked on him a lot. So he learned to fight. And that's why he became such a good golfer, because of that upbringing. And he said so later in life in an interview that he said, "I feel sorry for kids today that have it easy." He says, "I had it rough." He says, "I had to work for everything." And so because of that, it made him a stronger person, made him a better person. So yeah, he came up through the caddy ranks, and he played when he could, but he had to caddy, and then he got some jobs around for the Fort Worth area, different small courses where they named him assistant pro and things like that. And he was a good golfer though. But he was winning local tournaments back there, and he's beaten like Lloyd Mangrum, who came up from there, and Ray Mangrum. They both grew up together. He was beating them back then, and but he just didn't have the country club life that Jack had, or well, Arnie didn't, but Arnie, his father worked as a greenskeeper, so he was always involved with golf. So he had his father there to help him along. Ben didn't have that. He had to do everything on his own, and he became a stronger, better person for it. And that led to him being a successful businessman too. That the fact that he was such he's a bulldog. He didn't do anything till it was done right. And he said that when he put his name on these golf clubs, when he started manufacturing golf clubs, he remembered what his mother says: "Don't put your name on anything that you don't approve of." And so those golf clubs that he made were the best that were on the market at the time, because of his close quality assurance, quality control, and him leading the way to a better product. So yeah, so he came up the hard way. He didn't win his first tournament until 1938, which makes him that would be, he was 1912. He would be 20. Was that 26?
Yeah.
Well, other golfers are there, like Tiger already had like 4 or 5 majors at that time when he was 22, right? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he certainly had it tough. Like I say, when you're looking at the other guys who you might consider as being the greatest, boy, they had it easy compared to him. I think the other guy who had it tough, who you might consider to be the greatest, would be, obviously I would include Harry Vardon in that category. And Harry Vardon had it tough.
Oh yeah.
He grew up dirt poor. He was, he was sold as a servant. He had to play golf at night, sort of in the dark. He didn't have any real great opportunities. He had to work really hard for it. Hogan would be the same, but the other guys, boy, they had it easy, and they were ready. That's the point I've been making. They were ready when they were 20 years old. Hogan wasn't. He'd been selling, like you say, he'd been selling newspapers down at the station. Boy, did he have it tough. Yeah, I think that needs to be taken into consideration when you look at
I
the
do too. Actually, Neil, I have a post on my Facebook page, which I post something about Ben Hogan twice a day. I have 2 posts every single day about Ben Hogan. One of the posts is the Mount Rushmore of the greatest golfers of all time. And it starts with Harry Vardon, Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, Jack, and Tiger. So there's 5 of them. But yeah, so those are the 5 that I consider to be the greatest golfers of their generation. They dominated their generation. That's all they could do. They played against everybody they could, and they beat them. So they were you can't discount what they did because of the era or whatever. But and they were playing the clubs they were using back then too were and the balls and the course conditions they were just absurdly primitive. It was try to hit one of those golf clubs today. It's embarrassing. So you can't do it. So yeah.
All right, so we've talked about the US Open and the Open. What about the Masters? I mean, his record on the Masters possibly not as impressive as the US Open, do you think? Or we won that twice.
Well,
Yeah.
also at the Masters from 1939 to 1956, he never finished out of the top 10.
Right, okay.
So
So 1939,
that's
9th, 10th, 4th, 2nd, and then the war, 2nd, 4th, 6th, 4th, 1st, 7th, 1st, 2nd, 2nd, 8th. So that's sort of 1939 to 1956. Wow, I didn't realize that. So
39 from 39 to 56.
39 to
There's only
56 in the Masters. You've never finished outside the top 10. The US Open from
amazing.
1939 to 1960, never finished outside the top 10. And the Open Championship, played once, won once. Wow.
Yeah. He dominated.
I hadn't realised. I knew that about the US Open, but I hadn't actually noticed that about the Masters.
Yeah, and let's say there's only 5 players besides Hogan that have 14 top 10s in their entire career. And Ben Hogan missed several on his own and because of the war effort and his accident. Let's see, no player has had a run of 10 or more consecutive top 10s since, well, Jack Nicklaus did it in 1970 to 79. And Hogan's 14 straight is twice as long as Tiger's top 10 streak, which is was at 7. So yeah, no, he loved the Masters. Oh, and they loved him. Cliff Roberts and Bobby Jones, they thought he was something, and I don't know why, but they didn't like Sam Snead that much. They didn't care for Sam. They loved Byron Nelson. They loved Ben, but but Sam was a little he had a sense of humor that maybe they didn't agree with, but so they loved Ben and Byron so much that they dedicated a bridge to them. I think it was 1958. The Hogan Bridge. You see it all the time on the Masters. It's a beautiful bridge with 3 arches and a little plaque there, and then the Byron Nelson Bridge is on the 13th tee box, leading down to the fairway. So yeah, he was. Of course, the Masters is considered like a gentleman's, the epitome of gentlemanness, of politeness, of etiquette, and Ben was certainly a perfect gentleman, and so was Byron. And he just fit in with the Masters. He loved the Masters, and he would go there early and practice and to try to to understand the little nuances of that course more than anybody else. And he did. He ended up winning a lot of Masters. He was and also another interesting thing about Ben Hogan is he started the Masters dinner. When he won in 1951, he went to Clifford Roberts and said, we should have a smoker. We should have a men's, just for the previous winners and for you and whoever the chairman of the Masters is, a dinner on Wednesday night before the tournament. And it's an exclusive club. It's a club that every golfer wants to belong to, and you have to be a former winner of the Masters to be invited to this dinner. And Ben Hogan started that tradition, and he hosted the first dinner. He had to pay for it. He brought the food in. I don't know what he served, but he also had to do it in 1954 because he won it in 1953. But as you know, it's a big event. I mean, it gets covered pretty heavily, and people are always curious about what was the dinner menu. What did Sergio serve for dinner? Or whatever. So it was. That's another amazing stat about this guy. Ben Hogan is just amazing to me.
So, I mean,
Amazing.
the US Open is obviously considered to be a tournament for the great ball strikers and the players who can keep the ball in play, hit the ball straight, hit the fairways, hit the greens. The Masters is sort of, in my mind anyway, considered it's a bit more wide open. There's not as much rough. It's a lot. It's a long course, so it's a lot. It's for the longer hitters and it's for the better putters. So, I mean, how good was Hogan as a putter? I mean, he must have still been a fairly. He's obviously quite famous for being a terrible putter, which I don't think is actually true. I
Yeah,
mean, if he was winning the Masters, he
it's
must have been
not
a
true
good
at
putter.
all.
Yeah,
He was the best putter on tour. There was no. Everybody said. Everybody complimented. Up to his accident in 1949, he was 1948, 1947, all those years, the best putter on tour. When he got injured in his car wreck, which he became a hero, by the way. The story is that that he got a head-on collision with a bus, and right before impact, he dove across the seat to protect his wife, and it was before seatbelts. So he saved her because the steering column was smashed right into the back of the seat. He saved his life by diving across the seat to protect her, but he hurt his left side on so many different areas, and including his left eye, which got worse from like he couldn't see as good as he used to starting in 1949 to start, and it progressively got worse, and that's why he became not such a good putter, and that's what people remember. But
yeah,
people should know that he was the best putter on tour prior to the accident. There's because you just don't win the Varden Trophy. Yeah, the Varden Trophy, it considers every shot. It's just not the best driver or the best iron player. It's driver, iron, putter. It's the Varden Trophy. It's the best scoring average. So you don't get the Varden Trophy if you're not a good putter.
yeah. And in Bobby Locke's book, he talks about the best driver of the ball is so and so. The best long iron player was Sam Snead or whatever, and he lists Ben Hogan as the best putter. And I remember when I read that for
Yes.
the first time years ago, I thought, is he just taking the piss here? Because Hogan's famous for being a terrible putter. I thought, is this what Locke's doing? Because
Yeah.
Locke's widely considered as the greatest putter of all time. But no, but maybe
Well,
he wasn't. Maybe Hogan really was the best putter on tour.
well, to hear from Bobby Locke, who many people considered him to be the best putter of all
Yeah,
time. So he was the best putter. I don't, I guess he was just a bit embarrassed to name himself, but he was. Well, the fact that Bobby Locke said that Ben Hogan was the greatest putter, that is amazing. That's an
yeah,
amazing statement.
yeah. Well, there you go.
But the thing about the Masters is, Gene Sarazen said the Masters is a second shot golf course. Um, he- uh, Gene Sarazen said that you try to put your drive in position, but the second shot, putting yourself on the green in the right place on the green, is the most important part of the Masters. And Ben Hogan was a master at iron shots. That was his forte. Well, ball striking. He was the best ball striker. His driving and his iron play were the best.
Yes, I
Untouchable.
mean, so that's hinting at the core strategy. I mean, no one was better at core strategy than Hogan. I mean, Al Barco, who is a friend of John's from ABS here, he talks about why Sam Snead never won the US Open, and he says it's simply because he didn't alter his strategy. He was just shooting at the pins, whereas Hogan was the master I mean, he used to walk the course backwards or something like that to plan out his strategy. Um,
Yeah, I heard that he to figure out how the best way to play the hole by walking it backwards. You know, the best angle of approach.
yeah,
Uh, and he is, um, yeah, no, he never did have yardages, which is amazing. He just eyeballed it. They didn't even have 100-yard markers or a 150-yard tree or anything like that. He said he didn't want to know what the yardage was because he said it might be 100 yards, but maybe I want to play my 5-iron in there. So he it was just amazing. It was that's just another example of the equipment he played back then and the course of the condition of the courses, the lack of technology. it's amazing how he still has like the lowest scoring average without even knowing what the yardages are. You know, that's, how do you explain that? You know, that's just, yeah. I don't know. I try to do it every once in a while. I try to guess what the yardage is. But you know, the flag stick, if it depends, if it's a taller flag stick, you know, it looks like it's closer. If it's a smaller flag stick, it looks like it's farther away. I mean, it's just different things like that
Yeah,
I don't know how he did it.
it's a skill that we've slowly lost over the years. I think we
Yeah.
used to be able to do it, but now we don't have to do it. We don't do it. I mean, I quite like playing where I can just have a quick
Yep.
glance at the 150 tree and sort of work it from
Yeah.
there. But I mean, I suppose
Good point.
all of his opponents didn't have those things as well. So you know, I suppose if we're just talking about all time, but when we're talking about who he was up against, they didn't have those things. They had the same technology. I mean, there are some people who think that those clubs were the best clubs, even taking into account the modern day clubs. You know, John would certainly say that the irons from the 50s, like the irons that Hogan was first building, the ones which he was probably making, that he would have played with himself before they started to get lighter. They're the best
Yeah.
clubs ever made, according to some people.
Well, the first time I that I could find that, I'm sure Ben was using them before. It was the 1955 U.S. Open. He was playing Hogan clubs, and I think you mentioned it earlier that Jack Fleck, the guy who won the tournament, beat Hogan in a playoff. He went to the Hogan factory prior to the Colonial tournament, which was a couple months prior to the U.S. Open, and Ben came down and greeted him and set him up with a set of clubs with no charge at all, and he didn't have the wedges ready, so he told Jack Fleck, "I'll bring the wedges and give them to you at the U.S. Open, 1950, at the U.S. Open at Olympic Club," and so he did that. So one of the best marketing it was it was lucky, but it was brilliant. Ben Hogan, Jack Fleck won the U.S. Open playing Ben Hogan clubs. Ben Hogan finished in a tie for first playing Ben Hogan clubs. So you can imagine how many people wanted to buy Ben Hogan clubs after the 1955 U.S. Open. Everybody wanted a set of Ben Hogan clubs. And they performed too. The Hogan Company could not afford to sponsor a lot of people. They were a small business. Ben Hogan called it, we're a carriage business, which carried over from the horse and buggy days, which means people who had carriages were rich and they had high quality. So in law terms, a niche company like Hogan that makes quality clubs is called a carriage industry. So but they couldn't afford to sponsor players, but still, so many people were playing Hogan clubs, and especially later on the Hogan golf ball. Tom Watson played the Hogan golf ball in his prime. A lot of golfers, they played Ben Hogan equipment, but they didn't have a Ben Hogan sign on their bag or anything. They just couldn't afford it. They just know they make a good product and people want to play it. So that was pretty amazing about the Jack Fleck.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We've talked about the other three majors. So let's talk about the PGA Championship a little bit. I mean, the PGA back in those days was a match play tournament, and Hogan won it in It was the first major he won in '46, and then he won it again in '48. Then he had the car accident, and he didn't play in it again anymore.
Yeah, it was a test of endurance back then. First, you have to play a 18-hole qualifying round, a medal round, and then from there you would play 2 rounds every day, match play. It was match play, so you'd play 2 rounds, 2 rounds, 2 rounds. You ended up playing 72 holes in just like 2 or 3 days or something, but it went on for 5 days, and everybody was complaining about how tired they were. And Jimmy Demerit says, "Hey, the amount of money I win at this PGA tournament, I spend getting massages." Because it was 36 holes every day, and pressure of a match play match. So it was interesting that Ben won in '46, as you said, and then in 1948, after he won, he was quoted as saying, "This is my last PGA tournament." He says, I don't want to die an old man. He says, "I want to die a young man," because it was just so hard on him. And it proved to be very prophetic because he then right after the PGA later on, he got in a car crash and he never played in that PGA tournament then just because his legs just he couldn't handle that back then. After this accident, he had to wrap his legs because they would swell. He'd soak in Epsom salt. He'd come out of the bath and wrap his legs before they swelled up again. So he had his legs wrapped when he played, and you can almost kind of see it in the U.S. Open picture how his legs are wrapped there, and then after the tournament he had to take a bath to reduce the swelling. He lost all the circulation in his legs. It was amazing that he was able to play golf that way, and so after that accident he was just not able to play in the PGA because it was just too long of a tournament, and his legs just wouldn't hold up for that. So,
Yes, I mean,
I can relate because.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say his
I
record
said
on
I
the
can relate a
PGA.
little bit.
Yeah, his record in the PGA was 1940 quarterfinal, 41 quarterfinal, 42 quarterfinal. So that's top 8, and then a win, and then a round of 64. Remarkably, he got beaten in 1947. I don't know what happened there, and then he won it again in 48. So that one round of 64 in 1947. That's the only time he was outside the top 10 effectively in all of these tournaments that we've talked about from like 1939 to 1956. That's it once in all of those tournaments is the only time he's outside the top 10.
Amazing. Again, it's just a test of endurance. That he didn't just win one. He didn't win one of the tournaments. Dominate. He won all of them. Even the tournaments that weren't majors, he just dominated from that era. It was unbelievable. After the accident, when he dove across the seat to protect his wife, people knew him as a good golfer back then, or a great golfer. Yeah, he's a good golfer, so whatever. But when he dove across the seat to protect his wife and saved her life, and saving his life, he became a hero. And when he was in the hospital, he received so many get well cards and so many flowers. They had to move him to a bigger room, and it really touched him. And Valerie, his wife, said, it really changed him. He said, "I'm going to really try to be more open and friendly," and he was, and he turned out to be a little more. Not as it wasn't like a politician, but he kind of tugged at his heartstrings. So that was kind of amazing. But he was more than a golfer. He was a hero, and that was just one of the things in his life that separated him. Can you imagine? He wasn't thinking about himself in the last second. He went over across the seat to protect his wife. You just don't. I would do something like that, but I'd have to think about it, But he just reacted. It was instinctively. It was amazing. Yeah. So the PGA was pretty amazing. Do you know something else about? You want to talk about the Ryder Cup? How about that?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Do you know that he was undefeated at the Ryder Cup? 8-0-1. He never lost a match. And he was captain 3 times, and he never lost as a captain. So he was 11-0-1, let's say. He tied one person, I forget who it was. But, during World War II, they had these exhibition matches that they called challenge matches, and they were fundraisers for the Ryder Cup. And he participated in that. It was one group of Americans versus another group of Americans, because the British, the European team, they were just Great Britain back then. They couldn't come over because of the war. So we still had the Ryder Cup. It was held in Detroit. One was held at Detroit Country Club. The other was at Oakland Hills. And he participated, and he won every match that he played in those challenge matches. He did it for 2 years, and he won every match in 1947 and 1951. He won every match in 48, I think it was. But yeah, so it was amazing. So of course the Ryder Cup wasn't such a big deal back then. as it is now, but still, um, one year he went over to they played the Ryder Cup over in England, and he was welcomed as a hero, and they followed him around all over the place. But yeah, so he was once again dominating that era. You know, he never lost a Ryder Cup, either as a player or as a captain.
I didn't know that.
In 1967, he captained the Ryder Cup, and he famously they won the '67 Ryder Cup was the biggest margin of victory of any Ryder Cup ever since then too, and he famously Max Faulkner was the captain of the British team, and at opening ceremonies, Max introduced every golfer. This guy's this, he's this. That's great, and so it was time for Ben Hogan to introduce his players. This is so funny. He stood up and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the 12 greatest golfers in the world." And he just pointed at it, and then he sat down. And people loved it. It was just, and they were. They won just about every match. It was crazy. So he inspired him. He said, and some of the speeches before the Ryder Cup, he said, "I don't care what clothes you wear. I said, I don't care what ball you play." He says, "I just want to see my name on that trophy after this tournament's over." I said, so these guys, they had freedom to do whatever they wanted, and yeah, they performed for him. He inspired him. And then, like, Gardner Dickinson was one of the players, and he loved Ben Hogan. I mean, he emulated him. He wore the same Ben Hogan hat and everything like that. And but yeah, he went like 5-0 during that, along with Arnold Palmer. They both went 5-0 in that Ryder Cup. And yeah, he just inspired people. He inspired people. He was.
So what was it? What was it that you think made him so great? What was it made him so special that he rose to such a level? I mean, I'm sure that other people who've spent just as much time practicing as he did. So why did he take it to that next level where he came so close to perfection?
Well, yeah, well, I kind of disagree with that. I think he practiced more than anybody, but because he had a mystique about him. He created this mystique out of just being untouchable, being one of the, and then just being such a great golfer. I mean, practitioner. I mean, he practiced and practiced. Everybody knew that. And then, when he saved his wife's life, that was another thing that added to his mystique. He was just, yeah, he was intimidating. In the book, Let Her Rip by Gardner Dickinson, he tells a story. Mike Suchak was telling the story about how they went to play a practice round at the PGA tournament. Back then it was, I forget what year, I think it was 67 or something. It was medal play. It wasn't match play. So he was playing in the PGA. So him and Mike Suchak went to the practice tee, first tee for practice, and they're waiting their turn. And all these golfers that weren't used to seeing Ben Hogan, like PGA, these professional golfers, they were trying to hit their drives, and Ben Hogan's standing there watching them, and they're like, they topped the ball, they flighted it, and he said, "Well, I've never seen such a array of bad shots in my life." And finally, one of the pros came up to Ben and says, "Mr. Hogan," he says, "we're not going to get anywhere unless you go ahead and play through. Go ahead and play." And so they told him to go ahead, and so they were, so they wasn't intimidated by him. So he had that mystique. That's why I think he was that good, because kind of like what Jack Nicklaus said. He says, "I knew I was going to win the tournament, and he knew I knew that he knew." And so that's the kind of thing that Hogan, he had that confidence, and he had that mystique, and he was good. He practiced all the time, so he was truly the best golfer of his generation.
There's one of the books I read about him. It says that he used to hit 600 balls twice a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe it.
You don't know if these things are true or not. I mean, I remember once when I was practicing hard, I think I hit about 300 balls, maybe 400 balls once, and my body was broken, absolutely broken. I couldn't imagine daily hitting 1,200 balls a day. I mean, I suppose that's the levels of dedication it takes to become that good.
He loved it. He hit ball.
Go on.
He loved it. He hit balls well past his prime, well past when he was competing. When he was old, he just loved hitting golf balls. He didn't necessarily like playing so much, but he loved being on the range, you know, and I think that had something to do with him witnessing his father committing suicide. You hear about that. Children who have father who commits suicide, they just kind of focus on one thing in their life. You know, they find comfort in something, and then they just stick with it the rest of their life. And then he found golf, and I think that had something to do with his love of practicing. I mean, he just practiced all the time, even back you know, early in his career. He would finish his round of golf, go to the range, and his front. So he had a couple friends on the tour like Jimmy Demerit. He said, Ben, you shot a course record today. Why are you out here working? And this is after the tournament. Why are you out here practicing? He says, I still got to work on this shot. I said, it's still, you know, he was he was amazing, just amazing.
So what are your thoughts on his books and his articles? I know you obviously you've got pretty much every article, every magazine article, everything, probably every word ever written about Ben Hogan because you're posting them all the time on Facebook. I mean,
Yeah.
his books sort of became the manual that the PGA used to teach, probably still up until this day. Certainly, Power Golf, it seems to me, became what all the magazines used for years and years. That and Sam Snead's books, I think. He wrote the book that sort of became the manual, from what I can tell.
Yeah, no, the five modern fundamentals of golf is the best-selling golf instruction book of all time, and to this day, it's still leading on the tour. It's still leading at Amazon. It's the leading. It's in its 16th edition, I think, or something like that, and yeah, and everybody just studies that book, and it was this. Well, the story behind writing the book is interesting. Is that whenever Ben Hogan in 1955 went on released, had an interview. He says, "This is my secret," and he gave it to Life magazine. He's on the cover of Life magazine, and it talks about you know, supination in his backswing and a weaker grip and things like that. The owner of Life magazine also owned Sports Illustrated, and it was just starting at that time. So he published in Sports Illustrated without Ben Hogan's permission that same article. And Ben Hogan was livid. He says, "I'm going to sue you for every penny you're worth." And Henry Luce, who was the you talk about the strategy of the deal, you know, the art of the deal. He talked to Ben Hogan. He says, "Well, listen, Ben, I'll pay you whatever amount of money Life magazine paid you in addition for that. But I also want to commission you to write this an instruction book." And then that's how it. And so Ben Hogan he agreed to that, and he started. He published it in Sports Illustrated, the 5 lessons. So Sports Illustrated came out every month, I believe. So every month, every week, and it was a weekly edition to. And they put it right before 5 weeks before the Masters. They published it, and then it became a book, and people just flocked to buy it. I have like 5 copies. My original one is deteriorated.
Yeah, I've got a UK first edition. I might have 2 UK first editions actually. Yeah, but it's been well read. I mean, how much do you think he actually had to do with reading the book? I mean, sorry, with writing the book. But was he hands on, or was it all done with Herbert Warren Wynn? Was he the main writer?
Herbert Warren Wynn.
Did
Herbert Warren Wynn was amazing.
How much did he have to do with writing it? Is my question. Do you think he was really hands on, or was it just sort of he approved it?
Well, I think it was very hands on, but I think that Herbert Warren Wynn, he he corrected his grammar. You know, he made it more readable probably, and filled in some spots that needed to be filled in. So yeah, but no, it was Hogan's. David Ledbetter put out a book releasing the photos that were taken from that session where they wrote the book with Herbert Warren Wynn, and they have pictures of Hogan posing for all of the diagrams in the book. So those were actually him. Those are images of him that Um, who was the illustrator? It'll come to me in a second.
Was it Anthony Ravanelli?
Yeah, yeah, uh, Ravelli, right? Ravelli.
Ravelli was it? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so it was beautiful drawings in there. So anyway, yeah, he was very hands on. It was all him, and
Because I mean,
he
there's talk that he actually wrote a book which was like 800 pages long. He's like his notebook was 800 pages long, but obviously that's never been published.
oh
So
yeah,
I don't know if you can have a look in the back of the museum there, see if you can find it.
all right,
The
yeah,
real
well,
book, the
that'd be
real book.
interesting.
All right. So I mean, is there anything else you'd like to say? I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about the museum? What's the what do
Oh
you do?
no,
What
I'd
do you
like
do
to.
at the museum?
I would like to relate a story to you about Ben Hogan that you many people don't know. And I post this on my Facebook page, my Ben Hogan Facebook, and I think it's one of the greatest accomplishments that he ever did. That, in fact, that he should be given credit for this, and nobody does. This is amazing. Let me get a drink here. Apple juice. So, 1957, a guy named David Kammerer wrote this book called Golf with the Masters, and he took pictures of all these golfers without their permission, including Ben Hogan, and he posted it in his book as if they were as if they agreed to do this book with him or something. And he just went ahead and did it because back then it was the freedom of press. If somebody complained about, hey, I didn't give permission, it's like some people, like I think it was Sam Snead, who never smoked. They used him as in a cigarette advertisement, and he never smoked. And he tried to sell, but or tried to stop them from doing it, but the courts ruled back then that it was freedom of speech and the freedom of the press, that they are allowed to publish anything they want because and it was just not fair. So there was a group of athletes across the spectrum of sports. It included Babe Ruth, Red Grange, Joe Louis, the boxer. There was some tennis player, and Byron and other golfers too. They all they had a collective lawsuit, a class action lawsuit, and they chose Ben Hogan to represent them. Can you imagine? Of all the athletes in during that day, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Red Grange and Joe Louis and all these people that were famous, they chose Ben Hogan to represent him in this lawsuit. And the attorney had a brilliant idea that instead of saying, well, it's just not fair that I don't get any credit for this, he said it was unfair competition because this guy could publish a book and people would think that Ben Hogan actually wrote it, and then Ben Hogan writes his real book, and he's losing readership because people were thinking that he sponsored this book too. So that was their tact, and it was successful, and it ended up that from then on it was that you had to pay royalties. Now it's called the name, image, likeness, and so that was the very first instance where a person had to be they had to be compensated for their name, for their image, or if they take a picture of they have to either pay or get permission, one or the other. So that was and people don't. I mean, to this day that ruling is still in effect, and it's not just for athletes now; it's for celebrities like movie stars or other things that. So they created, and if you remember, there was a guy named Mark McCormack who made Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player famous. Mark McCormack took advantage of that decision, and he started his company, and that's how Arnold Palmer got to be so. He was used in so many. He was prolific in advertising. He made so much money by sponsoring oil and tractors and everything. He had a car wash. He had a barbershops. It was because of Ben Hogan. So this is an amazing story to me. I think that he changed the landscape of celebrityism. It created a whole new revenue stream for these people, and now they're rich from it. And nobody is giving Ben Hogan credit. And every single one of these people that collect even a penny, they should thank Ben Hogan for of course, he represented a group of people, but they chose Ben Hogan to be his representative because of his integrity and his reputation and his work ethic and everything. So it was something to be celebrated. I don't know why they don't talk about that on Entertainment Tonight or whatever. It's how athletes and celebrities receive endorsements and royalties is all thanks to that lawsuit that Ben Hogan won. Amazing, isn't that? Don't you think?
Yeah.
So that's a story I want to that I think that that should be told. I posted in my Facebook page, and everybody that reads this, oh my God, I didn't know that. It's a long post, but it's a very interesting story. So yeah, so that's I wanted people to know about that on this podcast. So it's something that I really wanted to. And of course, yeah, if I could put a plug in for the Ben Hogan Museum, Karen Wright is a curator. We have it is a first class, beautiful museum. Ben Hogan would be very proud. It has different things in there that you can see. It has a 2 iron in there that only Tiger Woods and Ben Hogan touched. They have it in case. They have his Hickok belt. They have all these different memorabilia about him, and it's just set up so pretty. You would love it if you went. If you love golf, you got to go, as Gary Player would say.
Well, next time I'm in America. So your Facebook page. So you've just went past 50,000 followers. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, every day you post 2 articles about Ben Hogan. I mean, I used to think that I'd seen every single photograph ever taken of Ben Hogan until I started following your Facebook page, and I realised I hadn't. There's quite a lot of the photos I've screen captured those and put them on the ABS forum.
Yeah.
But yeah,
if I could turn
the amount of stuff that you've got.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have every one of those magazines here. If I would turn the computer around, you could see I have hundreds of magazines, and they're all with Ben Hogan. And a lot of them are just. Let me see if I can get this on my phone. Oh, never mind. I'll mess it up if I do something. But yeah. So that's. I appreciate that. Yeah, my Facebook page I enjoy it. It's a labor of love. Ben Hogan was an inspiration to me. I was in a car wreck. I hurt my back. I read Gene Gregson's book about Ben Hogan back in 1990, and it inspired me to go through my physical therapy and get better. And I'm not a professional golfer, but I'm able to play again. And it was because of Ben Hogan. I mean, he inspired me to go through my physical therapy because it hurt. And I knew that if he could do it, and he didn't, I had pain pills, and he didn't have anything. If he could do it, then I could do it. And so from that, and then when I discovered Ben Hogan, I just realized he's an amazing man. All the different things that he's done. Another story, when he started this just shows you his integrity. It goes back to having his name on the product. The first the first batch of clubs that came down the line of the Ben Hogan clubs, he didn't like them. He said the hosel wasn't right or something, and he wanted to discard them. And his business partner Pollock said, well, we'll lose $100,000. It's $100,000. We're going to lose that money. And then Ben Hogan says, I'm still not going to. So they were arguing. So Ben Hogan went to the bank, borrowed the money to buy out his partner, and borrowed the money just on his name. He didn't have any collateral really to speak of. It was just his good name. He bought out his partners, and he went in it alone, and he scrapped those clubs. And who knows what happened to them, but they I don't know if they were destroyed or whatever, but he scrapped. He didn't use them. He didn't sell them. And he came out with another whole new line of clubs the next year that were good enough, that were good for him. He put his name on it. But that just shows you his integrity. I mean, $100,000 back then was, It could have been like $1 million, $500,000 or something. I don't know. And so he's in the hole already, $100,000 before he sells one club, at least $100,000. So yeah, and then of course, we told the story about the 55 U.S. Open, which helped boost the sales, and other things too. And he had that mystique about him, like we were talking. And when the club's sales in like the 80s started to lag a little bit, and Ping came along, and they're taking over the market for those group of people, they begged Ben Hogan to please get involved in a commercial. And so they just show the commercial of Ben Hogan in the 70s and in the 80s. They had two commercials, just hitting a golf ball and saying that I'm using Ben Hogan clubs, I'm using a Ben Hogan ball. And it was a brilliant marketing plan, and it just boosted the sales just because he was such a magnet. He was the mystique that he had, and he just attracted, and people just loved him, and they went out and they increased his sales. It was, I mean, by a lot too. The increased sales. It was a brilliant marketing plan, but they had him there all along though. It was just, he was amazing. It was amazing. And one of the reasons why I consider him the greatest golfer.
Yeah. I think they've just relaunched the brand again. I mean, it's sort of folded a few times, and I think they've just relaunched it again, haven't they?
Yeah, I got some of their clubs. Yeah.
You got some.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Do you have many of the older clubs? Do you have collections of the older clubs as well? Or?
I don't collect clubs too much. I have a couple of them, but I collect magazines and newspapers and memorabilia. I actually have his medal that he won for winning the 1948 Los Angeles Open. It's in my showcase here. So those are the things I collect. I have two of the Hail America programs. And there's only 10 of them in the world. So I have two of them. Yeah.
So these pictures behind you, are these autographed? Were you telling me just before we saw them?
Can you see it?
What are they? They're the programs,
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the programs.
And were you telling me that these photographs have all got signatures on them? Is that right? The photographs.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
These are all signed?
No, those are not signed, but that one's signed up there. But no, those are not signed. Those are just, I just love, those are when he was in England, I believe.
Yeah,
he went over to
Carnoustie, the one with the black cardigan. I think that's the Saturday at Carnoustie. I think the black cardigan.
There you go.
The grey cardigans are the Sunday, I think.
Yeah, he was a he was a beautiful dresser too. Another reason why he intimidated people. He was impeccably dressed. His creases on his pants were like you could cut your finger on them.
And of course,
he also went over to.
Of course, this one over your left shoulder, possibly the most famous golf photo of all time. Do you think?
Oh, of course, yeah. This is the 1-iron that he hit at 1950 U.S. Open at Marion. Yeah, and this is. Remember, I told you the story about the baskets, and they used a flag here at this Open. This was the Open, but a very famous High Peskin photo. High Peskin followed Ben Hogan around for the entire round, and he was working for Life magazine. And he didn't take one photo of him. And then on this 18th hole, he stood behind him and he took one photo, and that was it for his entire day. And it turned out to be this beautifully framed. It's a beautiful the way the crowd it's all balanced, and it's perfectly balanced follow through. And so now the interesting story behind this photo is the USGA will not allow any professional photographers to stand behind a golfer. So they never have a picture like this at a USGA event. So that's interesting. I think that they want to keep this preserved. They don't want anybody trying to imitate it or anything like that.
Yeah. One of the greatest golf photos of all time, without a doubt. And not the best shot he ever hit. I mean, it was a good shot, but not the best shot he ever hit.
Well, come on, it was a 1-iron, the 72nd hole of U.S. Open. I mean, it was no.
It was a good shot.
Even Hogan said it wasn't
good
his
shot.
best
Good
shot.
shot, not a great shot, but a great photo.
It was a good shot. Yeah.
It was a good shot, but a great photo.
Yeah. I agree. But there, I mean,
Oh,
it's famous photo. It's
go on,
it's
sorry.
one, not just golf, in sports. It's one of the most famous photos in sports.
Yeah.
So
All right. So, anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up, or I think that's me just
I'd
about
like to
done.
just, can I summarize why I think he's the
Yep.
greatest?
Yep. Go for it.
I could have done this. I could have done this at the beginning and it'd been over with really fast. So first of all, um, Hogan lived for golf. He was that was his whole life. He lived for golf. He didn't do anything else hardly, and he invented practice. So he was by far he practiced he hit more balls than anybody I think in the world. Maybe Mo Norman hit more, but I think that he hit more golf balls than anybody. So he invented practice. Um, Now golfers to this day they practice like he does now. Like so he started that whole deal. Prior to golfers would just go into the bar and play cards or whatever. But he invented practice. I'd also like to mention what I just told you about the story of him representing other athletes in a class action lawsuit, where he because of him celebrities can now receive in royalties from being on the cover of magazines and stuff like that. So he's also known. He's generally known as the greatest ball striker of all time. Generally known. Maybe so maybe somebody says, well, somebody hit a driver better than him, or somebody hit a nine. Through the bag, he was the best ball striker, and he's emulated by that. People want to swing like him. But it's almost impossible. He had a perfect swing. There was nothing wrong with his swing. There was not a wasted move in his swing. It was perfect. So that is another reason. This photo, I think, is another reason. Is that it's iconic. You don't see a Jack Nicklaus photo or well, you do, but nothing like that. His instruction book is the greatest instruction book. Is the best-selling instruction book of all time. So that's another reason why I think Ben Hogan was great, and he had this mystique about him. No other golfer had this mystique. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reasons. He may not have won the most tournaments, and he may not have won the most majors, but he did own practicing. He owned that lawsuit. He owned this photo. He owned the book, and he owned the mystique. I mean, those are 5, 6 reasons why he made golf a better place, and he was one of the people that grew the game, and and to me, he's the greatest golfer of all time.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate that. I've been trying to get you to do this for a year, so I'm really pleased we finally managed to get you on here. So I'll hang up now, but don't hang up yourself. We need to wait for this to upload before you hang up. So all right, well, Mark, thank
Neil,
you.
thank you.
Well,
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I love talking Ben Hogan. I love talking Ben Hogan with you, and I appreciate this opportunity to tell the Ben Hogan story. Thank you very much.
brilliant. Thank you. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.